in that theme, in that spirit of the character Geoffrey Chaucer in the movie A Knight's Tale. My lords, my ladies, and those not wearing ribbons on your name tags, I have the privilege of introducing the Sultan of Science, the fanatic of physics, the lubrication of education, the titan of technology, the generator of non-descriptive keynote titles, your new president of Cite, the one, the only, David Slykhuis.
Thank you very much, Dr. Park, for that introduction. I really just thought you were going to say, I taught him everything he knows, and just leave it at that, but that's okay. The first thing I actually had in my notes was to go over how do you say my last name, but thank you, that's already been covered, so I can scratch that off. It is Slykhuis. Yeah, it takes a little bit of practice. It's a little intimidating to see in print, except for probably our friends from the Netherlands here. It's a Dutch name, so they probably don't think it's that difficult at all. All right, so I want to cover a few basics here. For starters, you may have noticed the screens on the side. We're going to do things a little bit differently this morning. I know that many of you probably have your laptops and your iPads and your phones and your tablets and everything up, and it's not because you're checking your email and trying to figure out what you're missing at home. It's because, of course, you want to take notes and learn about what's going on. Well, I actually want you to use those today. I want to make this keynote participatory, and I want to extend it beyond this room. So I'm not going to put up any slides. I'm going to actually live tweet my own speech. And I ask that you might consider contributing to this. So as you see here, we have a feed with the CiteConf hashtag, so hashtag SITECONF, and that's going to stay up there throughout the whole time. And I can also see it here, so if you're wondering that you can sneak something by, I will see what you write, all right? And what I want to do is, I want you to be part of this speech. I want you to add comments. I don't want you to have to wait. I want it to be in real time. I want it to extend beyond this room. And if you would happen to follow me, if I pick up 100 followers really quickly, that's okay too. It's at PhDSLYK. All right, so. For this talk, I really have three goals. One is for you to learn about me. One is to learn about my views about information transmission. And one is to learn more about my vision for Cite. And I plan on using the questions in my title, who, what, where, when, why, and how, to accomplish these goals. So why did I choose this title? Well, I found online a quote by Jeremy Porter that said, "Why are the 5 W's and 1 H so important? Journalism purists will argue your story isn't complete until you answer all 6 questions." So my goal is to give you a complete story today and to answer all 6 of those questions. So let's start with the first one. Who? So who am I? At the moment, excuse me, I happen to be a man of quite a few titles. Let's start with the basics. I'm an associate professor of science education at James Madison University. I'm also the director of the Content Teaching Academy at James Madison University, where we bring on about 400 teachers each summer for a week-long residential professional development. I'm the co-director of the JMU Center for STEM Education and Outreach. I'm a Microsoft Distinguished Faculty Fellow. And most relevant to today, I'm the incoming president of Cite, and will be president for the next 3 years. At JMU, we have a slogan that is to be the change. And I hope that this slogan applies really to us here at Cite as much as it applies to what we do at JMU. However, those titles don't really fully define who I am. I'm also a husband and a father. My wife is a third grade teacher, and I have two daughters who are now age 15 and 11, a sophomore and a sixth grader, respectively. One of my wife's favorite teachings whenever we go out to a social gathering is to tell everyone that she actually teaches, and I just talk about teaching. If you'd like to really learn more about me, I do actually have a website where there are more videos and things that you could see. One of the things I really love, more about me, some of these videos that have been taken and doing a variety of things, the freeze frame that always gets chosen to be the first frame is sometimes very unfortunate. So what else about me? I'm also a sports fan. If you're from the U.S. and into the NFL craze, I'm actually a Minnesota Vikings fan. Thank you. It was not a great last year, but there's always next year. I also like sports on campus at JMU. One of the sports we follow the most, because I have two daughters, is actually the JMU women's basketball team, and they will be playing in the NCAA tournament later this week. What else? I have been known to enjoy an occasional beer, or two, or three. Particularly the craft beer movement, I enjoy that. But most importantly, I love technology. I love all sorts of technology, gadgets, gizmos, whether it be at work, at school, at home. I have a hard time getting enough of all of them. And it actually turns out that I'm platform agnostic. I have a Mac computer, I have a Windows tablet, and I have an Android phone. So I'm all over the place. So who needs information, and who is giving the information? My answer to that is everyone, all the time. And believe it or not, this is not a new phenomenon because of mobile devices, that everyone wants information all the time. Earlier this year, I got an email from my dad. My dad's a great guy. He was a wonderful father, but he's not particularly tech savvy, nor particularly tech friendly for all that matter. And the email that he sent me was one of those things that had been forwarded, this long chain that went around. And it had a supposed quote from Albert Einstein that said, "I fear the day when technology overlaps with our humanity. The world will only have a generation of idiots." And then it had a long string of pictures of those young people, at the beach, at the restaurant, at a museum, where everyone was on their phone and no one was actually interacting with each other. Well, it turns out, I actually did a little bit of research on that quote, and that quote is not attributable to Albert Einstein. And it turns out that being addicted to information is not a new phenomenon either. Here's a picture from a train ride in 1955. People are not being any more social here than those young people on their phones. It turns out that everyone wants information, and everyone wants it faster. That is really why we have mobile devices, and that's why we carry them with us all the time. We want to be connected to information. We want to be connected to each other. We want to know the latest and the greatest about what's going on around in the world, what's happening in the news, what's happening in society. And if you aren't a Twitter user, which I obviously am, this is really what I love about Twitter. You can get more information and you can get it faster. Very rarely do I hear about something that I haven't already known about from Twitter, because you can get the information that you want and you can get it faster. Everything is online now. All the facts that you need are online, and they are within arm's reach, as you almost always have a mobile device, something that is connected and online that you can get your hands on at all times. Now, all of the facts are online, and I think that's an important part there, because there is a lot of factual information out there, but it takes it takes some knowing of what is a fact and what is not a fact and what are fake facts. As if you spend much time on Twitter, you know that there are fake Twitter accounts, that they're spreading different things, and even going online, you have to be able to vet the information that you get. And really, I think that's a skill that students need now, to be able to know the proper art of searching and verifying information. There are some people, believe it or not, that would tell you, and I'm sure that's no one here in this room, that mobile devices are a threat to education. And I want to start now an analogy that I'm going to revisit several times throughout this speech that goes back to the mid-1970s, when there was another handheld threat to education. And I think you will be amazed at some of the parallels between this threat to education and what is perceived as the threat to education now. It turns out that this was a big threat to education in the 1970s. It's a handheld device that actually does a lot of factual things for you, and it caused a lot of drama. The mathematics community was quite in a turmoil about what to do. In doing some searching online, I was able to find a Master's of Education thesis from Cedarville University by Sarah Banks titled A Historical Analysis of Attitudes Toward the Use of Calculators in Junior and High School Math Classrooms in the United States since 1975. I'm actually going to refer to this several times in building this analogy, and often I'm going to ask you to substitute the term mobile device for calculator. Here. I have something that we can practice on. So here's a quote from the article, and it says calculator in it, but simply substitute mobile device for calculator and see what happens. Accepting the popularity of calculators or mobile devices and realizing that this tool was not going to disappear, educators were forced to adapt. Sounds familiar. As for my vision for CITE, what I want to address for the who is plugged in to CITE. We're all here at the conference. We're all going to leave energized and excited and ready to try new things that we learned this week. And I'm plugged into CITE. I tweet and I follow this hashtag, hashtag SITCONF. I am on Academic Experts, which I'll talk more about later. And I have many connections through CITE that have led to so many of the projects and the co-authoring and the opportunities that I've had. The question is, are you plugged into CITE? Are you using each other as a network? Are you forming a PLN based on CITE contacts? So let's return to the original question. Who needs information and who is giving it? I think everyone in the school cycle, from preschool through PhD, needs information. Students need information. Teachers need information. Professors need information. And they're getting it all the time on any connected device. Who is giving the information? I think students are giving the information. Teachers are giving the information. Professors are giving the information. And in ways that were never possible before. In tweets, on Facebook, on blogs, and and even in articles. So the next question, what? What is CITE? I think that's a fairly easy question to answer. CITE, it's the Friendly Society. My predecessors in the presidency, coined that term a long time ago, and I definitely want to see that continue. CITE is a truly international conference. If you haven't seen the statistics about CITE this year, attendance is slightly down, but it's still pretty good. We have right around 850 attendees, and we have about 50 countries represented. So really, when you want people to, is CITE international? There is no doubt CITE is an international conference, and we have the data to back that up. Well, what else is important about CITE? CITE is one of the few conferences that brings people together across multiple disciplines. It's not people talking to people just like them. It's not science educators and science educators, but it's from across disciplines, but focused on a theme, the use of technology in education. Plus, this is an anniversary year. This is the 25th anniversary of CITE and the 15th anniversary of CITE. And I did not actually misspeak there. And it's one of the things that's been confused for at least 15 years is that it's the 25th anniversary of CITE, the Society for Information Technology and Teacher Education. It's the 15th anniversary of CITE, C-I-T-E, Contemporary Issues in Technology and Teacher Education, a companion journal that CITE co-sponsors. And if the spelling and the pronunciation isn't tricky enough, both of those acronyms actually have the hidden T in them. I was just curious, since this is CITE Conference's 25th anniversary, is there anyone here that was at the first conference 25 years ago? There's at least one. Has anyone made it to all 25 conferences? Yes. Very nice. Yes, that should be an award. Of all the things I tweet today, this may be the one I'm going to regret the most. 25 years ago, when CITE began, I was a 15-year-old sophomore in high school. Yeah. I was not at the first CITE conference at that time. Although I was, even at 15 years old, very interested in technology. I showed that picture to my daughter, who's currently 15. She was very scared. So what information is needed? Well, I think that depends a lot on your context. So we talked about a little bit that facts are readily available. Let's quickly move on to another tweet so that doesn't stay up. So facts are available. They can be obtained from any online search, from any device, but that's not the important part about getting facts. The important part is, what are you going to do with those facts? So to build another little analogy, a little picture here, I think having a bunch of facts is like having a pile of bricks. So you can have all the facts in the world or all the bricks in the world sitting around. But just because you have a bunch of bricks doesn't mean that you know how to build a building. It's our job as teacher educators and our pre-service students' job as future teachers to know how to teach students how to build the building. The building blocks, the bricks, the facts are more readily available now than they ever have been. So the question is, are we challenging our students to build even bigger and better buildings than have ever been done before? The important part of facts is knowing what to do with them. I have tried very hard with my daughters. Harrisonburg, Virginia, I'll talk about it shortly here when we get to where, is actually a small town. It's where James Madison is located. And I have tried to let my daughters go through school with very little involvement from me as much as possible. However, this idea of facts and having students memorizing facts is one that really drives me crazy, because there's no real need to memorize facts anymore. You can get facts from anything. When the semester changed in January, my daughter was taking AP biology. She came home and she told me, "Dad, I'm really worried about AP biology." Obviously, I'm a science educator. I'm like, that's all right, I can help you with that. But she said, our very first assignment is by Friday, we have to memorize the entire periodic table. I literally tore my hair out, or I would have torn my hair out. That is the type of assignment that just drives me crazy. I actually even broke down and emailed our teacher and had a talking with him about that assignment. I think we reached a common understanding about how I felt about that. But there's no point in knowing facts like that. You have the periodic table with you all the time, or you can't. I'm sure if you have a smartphone, you have a periodic table app, right? Right? Who wouldn't have a periodic table app? That's what everyone needs. So how far can we push this with having mobile devices, having access to facts all the time? What if you were to allow mobile devices into your classes, including on exams? So if you asked a question that could be answered by a search, so be it. Either that question is a brick, it's not a great question, or you taught your students how to do a quick and effective search. But I think most of us would quickly find we would start asking how to build the building questions and not what is a brick question. The next question is where? All right. So first of all, some of you may be wondering, and I just mentioned, where is James Madison University? James Madison University is confused so often. It's confused wherever I go because it turns out it's one of those universities that doesn't have a location in its name, and it also happens to be in fairly close proximity to George Mason University, George Washington University, and there is also over the hill the university founded by Thomas Jefferson, which is the University of Virginia. James Madison is none of those. All right, James Madison University is nestled in the Shenandoah Valley, and now that I've been there 10 years, I have found out that you are not allowed to refer to it as simply the Shenandoah Valley. It must always be referred to as the beautiful Shenandoah Valley of Virginia. It is a lovely place and a lovely campus. So here is Harrisonburg. Here is James Madison University. There we go. So this is kind of the main campus as JMU expanded. It first worked its way this way. So this is all part of campus over here now as well. And yes, that is an interstate that runs right through the middle of the campus. If you look closely, there's also a set of train tracks that runs through campus, just to make it more exciting. There's also a sign, I kid you not, there's a sign posted that says, "Do not pass through a moving train," for the college students. Yeah. Turns out my office is actually over here in what is known as Memorial Hall. It was the old Harrisonburg High School. If you ever get a postcard or anything from JMU, you will get sort of this classic view from the quad and that you see down here, and then here's Wilson Hall. It's a very beautiful spot, James Madison University in Harrisonburg, Virginia. All right, so where is Cite? Well, obviously, Cite right now is here in Jacksonville, what was supposed to be sunny Jacksonville, which might eventually be sunny Jacksonville if we stick around here long enough. But where else is Cite? Well, I know where Cite's going to be the next 2 years. I know I'm going to be there. So Cite in 2015 is in Las Vegas. Cite 2016 is in Savannah, Georgia. So just go ahead and mark those down now as places where you want to be the next 2 years. So where is information being transmitted? Well, not just in schools. Information, the news cycle, it never ends. If you're thinking of yourself as a transmitter of information to your students while they are sitting in front of you, that's a dated concept. They can and should be learning from you all the time. Learning from you all the time at one point maybe meant that you gave them an out-of-class assignment and homework. But that no longer has to be the case. There's no reason that you can't read something, a current event article or something online that is relevant to your class, and at that moment, post it to your class's LMS and use a discussion board to have a conversation about it that day. It may not be in real time, but it'll be in near time. as opposed to if you wait 3 to 5 days to bring it into class when you see them again the next time, 3 to 5 days today is no longer a current event. I want to go back to that analogy of the acceptance of the calculator and read to you a paragraph from that master's thesis. Again, every time as I read this and I say the word calculator, I want you to hear mobile device. When I say computational skill, hear factual information. All right, are you ready? You can do this little mental game in your head. So, Sites and Parks in 1982 found that virtually every student had access to a calculator, mobile device, at home, and concluded that teachers and schools must form their reaction to this fact. To ignore calculators in school would be to disregard new technology and seem hypocritical to students. Since students had access to calculators at home, teachers had an increased responsibility to determine guidelines for using calculators in the classroom in addition to homework. At this time, teachers were extremely divided over the role of calculators in the classroom. Those who did not use calculators felt that the acquisition of computational skills, factual information, would be hindered through calculator, mobile device, usage. Teachers who were firm believers in incorporating this new technology into curriculum felt that calculators, mobile devices, were a necessary tool of the future. Additionally, calculators were beneficial for students that were active learners. The calculator gave students more control of their learning. This new technology was also be used to help students discover relationships, reinforce concepts, check their own work, and solve many real-life problems. It's amazing that that's 1982 and how similar that is to what we are experiencing today. So where is information transmitted? Everywhere. To be honest with you, when I travel, if I go someplace that has no cell service or poor cell service, it's like I'm lost. I'm like, what am I going to do? I can't check my phone? How is this going to happen? My parents live in Nebraska, and they thankfully just recently they got 3G service at their house, and I find that kind of hard to live with, but I manage. So where is information transferred? Again, everywhere. I'll tell on myself one more time here. At home in Harrisburg, I also sing in our church choir. And it so happens at our church that our choir sits up front, right behind the preacher on full display of everyone. And I will tell you that information is transmitted from the choir loft. I have both texted and tweeted during church from the choir loft. So information transmission does not stop, and it can happen anywhere. So the next question is when? Well, let's start with first, when am I president of Cite? I wish I knew the exact answer to that. It's either tonight at the leadership dinner or sometime on Thursday there's something mythical that happens, or it could be on Friday morning, but I do know that before I leave this week, I will actually be president of Cite. So, second thing is, when are those upcoming Cite conferences? Turns out that information is available as well. So the Las Vegas Cite Conference is March 2 through 6 in 2015. Savannah, Georgia is March 21 through 25, 2016. Now that you have the location, now you have the date, you should be entering those into your calendar right now. So make sure that you get those down. I think one of the most important things that we need to do is we need to continue the conversations. We need to continue to network. We need to continue to be involved in Cite from Friday, March 21 through Monday, March 2nd on 2015. We need to make sure that Cite is not, when you think of Cite, that you don't just think of the conference. When you think of Cite, you need to think about an organization. When you think of Cite, you need to think about connections to other people. The issues and interests that brought us all together this week don't disappear for the other 51 weeks. So why should we let those connections to each other disappear? So how are we going to build those connections? How are we going to stay connected from Saturday or Friday, Saturday, March 22, or up until Monday, March 2nd of 2015? Well, there's lots of different ways we can do this. We can stay plugged into Cite directly. There's the new Academic Experts Network. It's our own internal network here at Cite. On there, you can have friends, you can collect badges, you can start discussions, you connect with others. You could set up your own PLN, your own personal learning network, through Twitter of Cite people. This column has lots of active Cite people. You can join a SIG. Not can join a SIG, you should join a SIG. You can go to a SIG meeting if you're a teacher education today. You should go to a SIG meeting today. And then you can also be a little bit wild and crazy and connect face-to-face with people here at the conference too, and continue those conversations through things like email, even though that's a little dated, to do something like that. So when are we going to change our framework about information technology from sort of a newspaper model? There is no reason to hold on to a model of information coming to us, including coming to our students on a set schedule. When are we going to accept and embrace the paradigm shift in how information is communicated? Is yesterday a possible answer? How can we not be embracing the abundance of information that is available and available in an instant? The internet allows people to get information essentially at any time, at any place. And you may wonder, well, who uses the internet? And you probably think, well, everyone uses the internet. It turns out you're actually very close to correct if you believe that everyone uses the internet. So a research report that just came out in January from Pew Research, now this is American statistics, says that 87% of all adults use the internet. However, if you look at younger people, that's 97% of ages 18 to 29. And look at that next fact. I think that's kind of the scariest fact in there. Of that 97% that are connecting online, 68% of them are connecting via a mobile device. The mobile devices that most people are using now are such a part of their life. I'll tell you, on the first day of class, I'm sure we all do the same thing. We all go over our syllabus, we all go over our rules, we all go over our expectations. We probably all go over our cell phone policy. I'll tell you my cell phone policy for class. After I go over the syllabus, I say, all right, everyone, take out your cell phones. Set them on the table in front of you, and use them whenever you want. I just don't want to hear them. That's my only policy on cell phones. If they want to text somebody in the middle of class, great, go ahead, that's fine. If you want to tweet about what we're doing in class, go ahead. You want to take a picture of me teaching and tweet it? That's even better, all right? Yeah, but the cell phones are part of them. They should be part of their class, part of their learning. Now, I will admit I do have one little thing about cell phones. I just can't stand to hear them, all right? So often students will set it on vibrate, and then they set it on the desk in front of them, and when it vibrates, it might as well be ringing, right, because it's so loud. So we do talk about that. And this is probably just a very personal thing. There's probably nothing that drives me much more crazy than the click, 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 fake clicking sound that you get from keyboards. So we quickly go over how to turn that off if they want to use their cell phone in class. But my philosophy is, and I want my students to know, that being in class does not disconnect you from the rest of your life. And I also want them to realize that means that the rest of their life does not disconnect them from class. So, brings us to the next question. Why? Why am I president-elect of Cite? One of the things I want to do is I want to make sure you know the process of how this happened. Because I want to continue the trend and sort of accelerate the trend of making Cite transparent. I think that one of the things that Cite has grown up, and as we've become a more mature organization, we're trying with the reset election and the SIGs and many other things to sort of to bring everything forward and make everything transparent. And that's something that we need to do. So part of the process for being elected president was Last January, there was a call for nominations. Nominations were made. There was a committee of past presidents that vetted the candidates. The candidates then submitted position papers and vision papers for CITE. And then at CITE, the conference last year, at the leadership meeting, there was an election. So that, and every SIG leader and up who was a leader at CITE, at that point, was able to vote. And that is really sort of the procedural why I stand before you today. So why CITE? There are so many reasons for that, and I think you've heard a lot of those already today. But CITE is friendly. CITE is international. CITE is focused on teacher education, yet multidisciplinary. And we need each other. Working in isolation is no fun. I'm in probably a familiar situation to a lot of science educators in the fact that at JMU, I'm actually the only secondary science ed person. There's also an elementary science ed person, but he's in a different department. And so it's very difficult, as at James Madison, we're also a master's level institution, so I don't have a fleet of doc students at my disposal, to really be involved in big projects. But it turns out I have been involved in big projects. I've been involved in a lot of big projects. I've worked with big partners. I've worked with NASA. I've worked with Microsoft. I've worked with colleagues at UVA, at William & Mary, at NC State. And every single one of those projects, every single one of those connections was through CITE. It was through connections I made here. It was through people I met here. It was through getting to know each other here and knowing that we have common interests, that we want to work together, that made all of those things possible. You need the support, and you need those connections that your friends here at CITE can bring you. So why do we need to shift our thinking in relating to information? Well, I heard this yesterday at a presentation as well, is that we need to meet students where they are. That's one of the conditions for learning, meeting them where they are. And where are they? They're on their phones. That's where they are. And so one of the things we need to do is we need to meet them there. This means teaching our pre-service teachers in ways that are relevant to them, and more importantly, teaching the pre-service teachers to meet their future K-12 students where they are. The students of today are different. They expect to be connected all the time. They expect to be part of something bigger, and they expect you to help them get there. How are we going to help get students turned around? I think technology is part of that answer on how we can turn around the next generation.
I am part of a lost generation, and I refuse to believe that I can change the world. I realize this may be a shock, but happiness comes from within is a lie, and money will make me happy. So in 30 years, I will tell my children they are not the most important thing in my life. My employer will know that I have my priorities straight because work is more important than family. I tell you this, once upon a time, families stayed together. But this will not be true in my era. This is a quick fix society. Experts tell me 30 years from now, I will be celebrating the 10th anniversary of my divorce. I do not concede that I will live in a country of my own making. In the future, environmental destruction will be the norm. No longer can it be said that my peers and I care about this earth. It will be evident that my generation is apathetic and lethargic. It is foolish to presume that there is hope. And all of this will come true unless we choose to reverse it. There is hope. It is foolish to presume that my generation is apathetic and lethargic. It will be evident that my peers and I care about this earth. No longer can it be said that environmental destruction will be the norm. In the future, I will live in a country of my own making. I do not concede that 30 years from now, I will be celebrating the 10th anniversary of my divorce. Experts tell me this is a quick fix society, but this will not be true in my era. Families stayed together once upon a time. I tell you this, family is more important than work. I have my priorities straight because my employer will know that they are not the most important thing in my life. So in 30 years, I will tell my children, money will make me happy is a lie, and true happiness comes from within. I realize this may be a shock, but I can change the world, and I refuse to believe that I am part of a lost generation.
So part of our responsibility is to help these students turn around. So how do we meet them where they are? Let's return once again to the calculator metaphor. Again, insert mobile device for calculator here. Educators insisting on calculator usage in the classroom focus on the benefits and increased motivation and desire to learn from students as reasons to utilize these new devices. I think that's something we all want for our students, to have them have increased motivation and a desire to learn. I think that we encourage our students to be active learners all the time. We often use the phrase that we want them to be lifelong learners. How about we start that by helping them be all-day learners? They have their cell phones with them all day. There's no reason they can't learn all the time. Let's return one more time to that brick analogy about bricks being facts. I was fortunate enough on a recent trip to have the opportunity to go to the top of the Burj Khalifa in Dubai. It's the world's tallest building. It is very, very tall. And what I want to know is, why aren't our students in our classes being taught to build the Burj Khalifa? We should be challenging our students to do new and better things than students have ever done before, because they have access to information like no other students in history have ever had. So how? How am I going to lead CITE? Well, I want to keep CITE moving in the direction that it's going. It's being friendly, being helpful, being international. I want to increase the communication from CITE leadership to CITE members. I want to increase the transparency about CITE policy and decisions. And I want to make CITE become a part of your year, not just during 1 week in March. So how can CITE help you? How can CITE help you stay connected? As I mentioned before, one possible solution is academic experts. It turns out one of the things that you can do in academic experts is start discussions. And so in preparing for this, I started a discussion in academic experts. And there's a link to it right there that anyone who's on academic experts can join that discussion. And basically what that discussion is what the prompt there for that discussion is: what would it take for you to keep coming back to academic experts between conferences? I don't know about you, but I use academic experts right now as the event planner for the week. You know, picking your sessions, doing your calendar. It actually exports to your calendar so you can import it to to whatever calendar that you're using. It can show up. But what else can we use academic experts for? That's what I want to know from you. I want you to go here. I want you to participate in this discussion and let me know, what would it actually take for this to be a place for you to check? And not just to check while you're here, but to check during the year, a place to find information, a place to make connections with each other. If you remember, in your pre-conference email that you got from CITE, it talked about academic experts, and it encouraged you to fill out your profile. And it gave a list of some of the features that academic experts has. In case you didn't read that email very carefully, I have that list for you. It says that you can plan your schedule, you can search for other attendees, you can connect with and message participants, you can create your personal profile, you can include in your profile imported publications from the EdIT library, and you can create and participate in discussions connected to every presentation, and you can view social web feeds. And there is more planned. Having a conversation with some CITE attendees that one of the things that we could possibly do in this is add sort of an Amazon or a website star rating. So you go to a presentation, you give some presenter stars. So you could say, oh, look, there's a 5-star presenter today. However, that might not fit with our friendly society motto quite so well. So I doubt we'll move to the star rating system. But there's much more academic experts could do. And it's a new system. We have the opportunity now to really shape what we want that system to be and how we can use it. So I encourage you, if you haven't done it yet, go to academic experts, complete your profile, put up a picture so people know what you look like and can recognize you. You can find some friends on there, make connections, comment on presentations, use the tool, and let us know how we can make it better for you. So how are we going to equip tomorrow's teachers to transmit information and learning skills most effectively? Well, here, if you're like me, when I come to Cite, I come here, I get energized, I'm excited, full of new ideas, and then we go back to our universities and we implement those ideas. That's the first key that we learn here after we get caught up on all the email that we missed. But that includes embracing technology in our classrooms. And I would challenge you to go back and to embrace BYOD, bring your own device technology, including mobile devices in your classrooms. Let's look again at the calculator and mobile device. Because eventually in this debate, it got to the point that education leaders got to the point, if you can't beat them, let's join them. And it was at this point that teachers and curriculum writers searched for ways to teach effectively with a calculator as a pedagogical tool. So are we searching for ways to search effectively with mobile devices now? But this is not really a keynote about the importance of mobile devices. It's a keynote about the importance of taking advantage of the resources we have available and the information that is available to us. It just so happens that I believe that right now, that is device-driven. We used to think that it was great. We had our computers, that we had desktop computers, it was great. And then there was a huge change, the laptop computer. We could take all of that information that we had, close it up into a tiny little 8 to 10 pound package that we could carry around with us. And we had access to all that. You now have access to all of the same information in your pocket on your mobile device. The key is our students also have access to all of that information in their pocket all the time. So how are we going to get to the tipping point? If you can't beat them, join them. Again, from the calculator analogy, part of this came from students being provided calculators. So to quote, it was another milestone for students using calculators occurred as cities such as Chicago began to provide free calculators for all students. That was in 1988 when that happened. So how close are we to having the saturation that we would need for all students to have access all the time? Turns out I think we're a lot closer than you might believe. So, where'd that go? Look at these trends. Now, it's not, I really should have made a graph. You could see how fast it was shooting up. But I think you can picture it. It goes from, in 2011, 36% of teens own a smartphone to 58%. To 2013, 70% of teenagers now own a smartphone. My oldest daughter happens to be one of the 30% who doesn't, and she lets me know often. But can you envision a day when mobile devices are not just accepted into the classroom, but they're provided for students? I would love to get a class list sent home that says, bring pencils, bring paper, bring your mobile device. I think that's a great vision. Schools have now embraced one-to-one computing with laptops and with tablets, but why not with smartphones? And if you're going to give a student a smartphone, don't give them a smartphone just to use in school and to lock it down. Give them a smartphone with a data plan that students can take home, that they can use it. Even let them take selfies and Snapchat them back and forth. But we actually need to give them the technology that they want to use all the time, so that when they use that technology for academic purposes, it's a totally normal part of their routine. Are there concerns about this? Of course there are. There's concerns about safety, about cyberbullying, about access to content, but those really aren't different from any of the other concerns that we have with other computing devices. And many schools that are doing one-to-one currently are sending those laptops home with students. So, if you have been following along, you're going to find out that we've gotten to the point where I have now sort of checked all of these boxes: who, what, where, when, why, and how. I hope that you are thinking that you've gotten a complete story. I hope that you've learned about me. I hope that you've learned about the Cite conference. And I hope that you've learned about my views about information access and how we should take advantage of that access. Now, let's make sure to access a great information source, each other here at Cite, and make sure that that access to each other does not end this week. Let's keep connected. If you haven't yet, you can follow me on Twitter, @PhDSLYK. Same name on Instagram, by the way, if you want to follow me there. You can fill out your academic expert's profile. You can get involved in a SIG. Because I think this is Cite, where information and people connect. Have a great conference, and thank you so much for this opportunity.